Hello and happy Tuesday, which is of course my book reviews day. And today I would like to talk to you about How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, which is an excellent name for an instructional video, but this is a book review. But that's one of Grady Hendrix's biggest strengths, is he is really good with snappy titles. How to Sell a Haunted House, My Best Friend's Exorcism, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. The dude does a snappy title. And he does a great balance of horror and humor. This one was not as humorous as some of his previous titles. It actually gets a little dark at times compared to some of his previous titles. But it handles the horror well. Here's a little ghost saying hi to you. This is the signed edition from the Broken Binding. More details on that at the end of the video. But if you haven't read Grady Hendrix and you're a fan of horror and you're a fan of, getting a little chuckle here and there, then you should definitely check out Grady Hendrix. This one definitely leans more on the horror side, in my opinion. All his novels are horror novels. They deal with possessions, they deal with selling your soul, they deal with haunted IKEAs, and this deals with a haunted house, or more accurately, haunted possessions within the house. It's not the house itself is haunted. It's kind of like you can leave the house and you can leave the problem behind. But there are things in the house that can definitely move and follow you if they wanted to. I don't want to spoil what's within this house, but, if you're not a fan of the Annabelle films, or if those give you the creeps, then this novel will also get you the creeps. It follows Louise and her brother, well, primarily Louise, but there are some chapters going into the brother's backstory as well. Louise and Mark, siblings who haven't talked in a while. They don't really get along very well. Sibling rivalry, to say the least. But their parents have just died. And so Louise has to fly back to Charleston, in order to help clean up their parents' affairs and get the house on the market. Mark wants to very much just throw everything out. He wants to just get rid of all the possessions, whereas Louise wants to, actually take a moment to stop and appreciate what her parents left behind. So they're disagreeing right off the bat, and it soon becomes apparent that things are not all that they seem to be in the house. So even the parents' death has some strange unanswered questions behind it. And it's not long before you start getting answers to those questions, and those answers will give you a little bit of goosebumps. It's almost, I will say, the first, probably fourth of this novel is a little bit on the slower side. It does take a little bit to get going. It really lays down the pieces of the story for you. But once you start getting into the creepy shit, it's fantastic. And then it actually almost becomes a novel of two halves. About halfway through, you're like, oh, this is where the novel is going to end. Why are there so many pages left? And it would be a satisfying enough ending if it ends where it does. But it goes beyond that. As I get my camera out of focus there, it then gives a nice little twist on its head, and suddenly you're drawn back in, and you're like, oh man, okay, there's a lot more to this novel than what you thought. I would say that second half is where the novel really shines. The novel all around is a fun read. If you like haunted houses or possessed items, or even you want to just read a little family trauma and a little sibling rivalry with a little bit of ghosts. I'm kidding. It's a lot of, ghost isn't the accurate term. A lot of bit of hauntedness. Then this is the novel for you. It's one hell of a read. If you're a fan of Jeff Strand, you're probably going to be a fan of Grady Hendrix. They both have very similar writing styles, and they both tend to balance humor with the horror. I will say Jeff Strand's usually a darker subject matter. He gets a lot bloodier and more raunchy in his novels than Grady Hendrix does, which is kind of why Jeff Strand has to self-publish a lot of his books, which is a damn shame. Grady Hendrix, I don't want to say he's watered down, because that is detrimental to Hendrix's style, but he's more easily accessible to larger audiences. And so through those larger audiences is why you can find Grady Hendrix in any bookstore, anywhere books are sold. The man knows his stuff, especially on classic horror. So he's written Paperbacks from Hell, which is a massive, massive nonfiction title. And you can tell that he knows his stuff because he injects that horror, those nostalgic horrors, within How to Sell a Haunted House. I mean, it's very much a modern story, but it feels like the subject matter, like it feels like a classic horror story from decades ago, from the 80s, from the 70s. Like it could very well be a novel from the 70s if it weren't for, cutting back a little ways. So anyways, How to Sell a Haunted House, very fun read. If you do try to read it and you think, man, it is slow, especially in that first third, I say just try to hang in there, at least till halfway point. If you don't like it by the halfway point, you're not going to like the second half. But I think it'll pick you around in that second third, up to the halfway point. I am not a squeamish person by any means, but there was even a scene in here that made me squirm, where, well, I don't want to say because that'd be a spoiler, but yeah, if gives me Dead Space 2 vibes, and that scene from Dead Space 2 is nope, that gets me to squirm as well. Anyways, this right here is the UK edition. I purchased it from the Broken Binding, which has the exclusive sprayed edges. It has the signature from Grady Hendrix. Hendrix himself is no stranger to signing his books. You can actually find signed copies pretty cheap and affordable online. I believe he had signed copies through all of these. Waterstones, Broken Binding, apparently export paperbacks, Australia export edition, all sorts of different editions. And you can find signed copies pretty much anywhere, including his own bookstore. I think he only sells his own personal books signed about like once a year, but they're quick sellers, usually around like Halloween and the holidays. But like I said, it's not difficult to find his editions signed. There's even a small press edition coming from the UK from SST Publications. I don't know if it's shipping yet. I believe it said it was shipping in February. It's sold out. I missed out on a copy myself, but it looks very exciting. It might be one I have to try to find on the secondary market. SST does an incredible job. The Broken Binding edition, it's a glued page block, so glued spine, which is what you're going to get with a lot of trade editions. The SST edition is a sewn binding, nice cloth boards, and it features artwork by Eli Johns, who is the artist who recently did different seasons for PS Publishing, and he did How to Sell a Haunted House for SST, which makes it very exciting. I can't wait to see Louise and Mark's adventure, to see the house illustrated, and to see Pupkin, who is one of the menaces that they face in all his glory. But anyways, check out How to Sell a Haunted House. Check out Grady Hendrix. The man is an incredible author, especially if you're looking for horror with just a little tad dose of humor mixed in. Copies of the Broken Binding edition, I think, are still available through the Broken Binding. Link in the description below. They were on sale for their New Year's sale. I don't know if they are still on sale. Probably not. But I know Illuminations by Alan Moore was still on sale. So maybe this one is still too. I don't know. I have at least one book review a week, going to be on Tuesdays, as well as plenty of unboxing videos in between those. So please consider liking and subscribing if you want to check out more of these videos. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.